Child abusers, the worst of the worst. Medicaid has paid out $400 million to dead people. Dead people. And the $13 billion aircraft carrier that can't flush their toilets. Hey, welcome to the Jay Sheldon Show. Happy Monday. Yep, it's a Monday. Oh boy. Hope your weekend was great. Mine was okay. Marilyn, hello there. Good morning. Be blessed. Indeed, praise the Lord. And wow, last week I got hit with this horrible cold, coughing, flu, runny nose thing. And then over the weekend, just a bunch of Panadol, and that's what we call Tylenol over here is Panadol, same thing. And aspirin is barely, if ever, used around here, strangely enough. Love aspirin. But anyway, I was fighting it. I got a lot of rest, and it seemed to have pretty much gone away until this morning. Ugh. It came back. Have you ever had that happen? Where you think the flu or the cold is gone, and all of a sudden it goes, oh no, we're still here. Boom. My eyes are so watery, I actually have to squint and look down for some of my numbers and things here. It's just weird. So we're going to get through it no matter what. Pray for me, please. Oh, man, I'm telling you, it's absolutely unbelievable. But we're there. We're here. We are live on Rumble. We will have the video play of our show on X and YouTube, and we will be putting those up just as, sometime later after the show is done. Before we get into that, though, folks, whenever something goes viral, you can rest assured that frauds are going to jump on the bandwagon pretending to be patriotic companies. Well, guess what? No surprise, they are not. For more than 10 years now, Patriot Mobile has been America's only Christian conservative wireless company. And they are right there with us. They support this show. They support all the things you and I believe in. The right to life, First and Second Amendment, our first responders. Patriot Mobile, you get to the link in our show notes. It's easy to remember, patriotmobile.com/J. That's it, Jay. Or you can use the code J, and you will get your first month free when you get signed up. Patriot Mobile, dependable nationwide coverage. You keep your phone number. The customer service staff is 100% US based. They are there to get you into a plan you can afford. And if you're under contract currently with some other company, don't worry about it. They got plans. They got ways. Work with their customer service. They're fantastic over there, and they'll get you into a plan that fits your needs. PatriotMobile.com/J. Switch to Patriot Mobile and support a company that is defending free speech, religious freedom, the sanctity of life. 100% US-based customer service team. These guys mean business. They are all about our conservative values. They donate parts of their proceeds to our conservative value organizations. Nothing goes out to these lefty DEI crap groups. And I'm telling you, Patriot Mobile, pleasure to work with them. They have been a good supporter of this show. Don't be fooled by those patriotic TV ads. Partner with the only wireless provider that actually cares about our values, patriotmobile.com/J. Thank you, Patriot Mobile, for being a part of the program. We appreciate that. All right. Danny, beautiful morning. Not really. The wind chill feels like -25. Oh, my God. The Bears are out of the playoffs, and New England held on against the Texans. So it's a beautiful day. All right. We'll go with that. All right. The type of sickos ICE is getting out of our neighborhoods. As the Minneapolis mob and their fellow privileged leftists protests holding signs declaring Renee good, ICE bad. Immigration Customs Enforcement agents continue to do the hard, thankless work of removing the worst of the worst criminal illegals from crime-battered communities across this country. Thursday of last week, the roundup included perps convicted of sexual abuse of children, sexual abuse of a minor, and aggravated assault. That, according to the latest Department of Homeland Security report. Yesterday, law enforcement arrested monsters who are sexually abusing and raping children. These are the type of sickos we're getting out of our neighborhoods. That, according to Assistant Secretary of DHS Tricia McLaughlin. Sex offenders brought into custody include Lionel Antonio Carranza Nunez, a Mexican foreign national found guilty of continuous sexual abuse against a child in Santa Ana, California. Willem Rodas Aguienta, alleged criminal illegal from Honduras, convicted of second-degree sexual exploitation of a minor in Robeson County, North Carolina, according to DHS. Lorenzo Sebastian Chiroy Chicum from Guatemala, according to DHS, found guilty of sexually assaulting a minor in Williamson County, Texas. There's more. The list goes on and on. September 2024, Homeland Security officials reported to Congress they had tracked down some 435,000 illegal aliens with criminal convictions that were not in custody. Should have been, but 20,000 of those immigrants convicted of murder and or sexual assault. 20,000. December 2025, January 2026, this month, DHS updated its worst of the worst website. Yeah, there's actually a website. They added another 10,000 criminal illegal aliens, which is apparently a mere fraction of the total suspects. Immigration law enforcement officials arrested in the previous year. Corporate media outlets on Friday of last week decided the record 73,000 illegal immigrants in custody. CBS News reported the number is the highest level recorded by the agency and an 84% increase in the same time in 2025, when its detention population hovered below 40,000. The increase has everything to do with the Trump admin committed to mopping up the flood of illegals in this country, and particularly the ones that continue to commit crimes. Internal DHS data shows about half of the detainees awaiting deportation have been charged and or convicted of other crimes beyond breaking our immigration laws. McLaughlin told CBS content provider 70% of illegal immigrants arrested by ICE during Trump's first year in office have committed criminal records or are facing charges, including those with connections to terrorism. You got it? Okay? These are who we're taking off the street, and these are who you lefties are trying to hide and let go into our community. You should be ashamed. Other media outlets lamenting that growing numbers of illegal immigrants picked up by ICE have no criminal records, but they do. That record began when they started illegally entering into the United States. McLaughlin said there's a lot more work to do. Thanks to the One Big Beautiful Bill, ICE now has historic funding to secure enough detention capacity to maintain an average daily population of 100,000 illegal aliens and 80,000 new ICE beds. Long, long, long list of violent offenders. Agency is not going to allow criminal illegal aliens to prey on our children or to victimize innocent Americans, which they currently do daily. McLaughlin said, if you come to our country illegally and you break our laws, we will hunt you down, we will arrest you, and we will remove you from this country. Period. End of sentence. Done. These are the people you're supporting out there. Is that what, are you happy with that? I'm not talking to my audience because, but in case there's any lefties out there who came into the show just to see what we were all about, well, knock it off. Because those are the kind of crap people that you people are defending. You people are trying to support and hide. You hear about the church service with that idiot Don Lemon? Unfreaking believable, this guy. Anti-ICE activists completely disrupt a church service because they think one of the pastors is an ICE agent. These people are not only dead wrong, they're just freaking stupid. Seen a lot of bad behavior from these anti-ICE agitators. Not only harassing agents, but now targeting just random people. Oh, we think that one might be an ICE agent. Let's go get him. They appear to be playing Can You Top This? Outrageous moves. And over the weekend, it is beyond me they would even have the nerve to what they did yesterday. They disrupted the city's church in St. Paul in the middle of a service, a Christian service, because they believed an ICE agent was associated with the church. Don Lemon was in on it, filming some of this ridiculous raid. You can hear the chanting, Renee Good, in the background. They even did the old hands up, don't shoot bull crap. These freaking idiots. Lemon, this Don Lemon moron, actually had the gall to compare it to the civil rights movement. How out of touch is this idiot? This is legitimately nuts, folks. Nobody in their right mind with half a brain cell can justify this kind of bullshit. Even if you wanted to protest an ICE agent, you don't do it by interrupting a church service where people are there to pray. You're saying their rights are not important to you? And what you want trumps their right to pray in peace? The anti-ICE crew claiming that ICE is violating people's rights, and then they went ahead and did exactly the same thing. The pastor who was there tried to get them to leave, saying it was shameful to interrupt the service. And here is that absolute moron, Don Lemon, interviewing who I believe is the pastor.
This is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship. So,
But there were folks who will.
I have to take care of my flock. And
Okay,
my
but listen,
family.
we live in there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Don. Among those other freedoms you neglected to mention just now was the freedom of religion, okay? Unbelievable. He claims the First Amendment right to free speech and protest. How about religion, Donnie? They have just made a huge mistake with this. This is going to show middle America, if they didn't already understand it, exactly how off the rails and nutbags these people are. Did not go unnoticed, by the way, by Assistant District Attorney General Harmeet Dillon, said they would be investigating the incident to see if it violated the FACE Act for desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers. These are the kind of morons we're dealing with, and nothing is stopping them. They're just going to keep on going. Nick Sorter, back at it again, and he has apparently been robbed in Minnesota. The FBI is on it, but it has been a wild weekend for anti-ICE action, just like the church service we told you about just now. And what has gone on in Minneapolis has been insane. Agitators harassing random people they thought might be ICE agents. Anti-ICE crews out there trying to disrupt anything and everything they can, even if they just think that somebody might be an ICE agent. That wasn't quite the end of the wild moments, though. Independent journalist Nick Sorter filming out of his car at the Cedar Riverside neighborhood of Minneapolis when a woman rips the $1,000 camera he had right out of his hand. He jumps out of the car and gives chase. Take a look at this.
Hey, get! What did she just do? She fucking...
Oh, shit. Okay, it's okay.
She took Nick's camera. She just stole Nick's camera. Let's get her.
No, give him the camera! You're gonna give him the camera!
Just tell her to give him the camera back.
Give him the camera!
What happened, Nick?
They just stole my camera.
Right out of your hand while you were in the car?
That's what the fuck you wanted, right? That's what the fuck you wanted, right?
That's what you did.
Man, listen, motherfucker, you better get the fuck up out of here.
My daughter.
You fucking coward. What the fuck are you, a coward, bitch?
You have to leave.
You a fucking coward. You robbed you, motherfucker. Get the fuck up out of here.
$1,000
Bitch. You fucking coward. You a fucking coward, motherfucker.
Nobody
Motherfucker, you trying to incite that shit.
Nobody stepped
Man, get the fuck up out of here, bro.
$1,000 worth of
Yeah,
equipment.
fuck you, bitch.
Did you call that?
He says that while he's sitting there wearing a mask, so you can't identify who he is. I'm sorry, who's the coward? Just ripped the camera right out of his hands, then dragged him down the street after he grabbed the handle of the car door this thief was running away in. He said his hand got trapped in the door, which from the looks of that video was extremely dangerous, especially on a slippery sidewalk. And B, she was driving on the sidewalk. He said he wasn't seriously hurt. And instead of helping the guy out, the people on the street, as you just saw, continued to yell and scream at him and asked him to leave, threatened him. Unbelievable. Mike Davis posted on X, said, "Wow, I'm buying you a new camera. Send me your Venmo and DM." Good. Good. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Are you dead? Because if you are, you could get some very nice Medicaid payments. There is a new report out that Medicaid, in just 1 year, paid out to dead recipients $400 million. To dead people. DHS has identified improper Medicaid payments totaling over $408 million in 1 year. You know how much of those payments got recovered? Less than half. Yeah, that leaves $200 million plus in the wind. Ongoing scandal in Minnesota's welfare industrial complex shows you exactly the extent to which government has graft hidden in front of the nation's noses, right in front of our noses, not just for years, folks, but for decades. Another report, just released before Christmas, says the depth of these fraud payments is incredible. Last summer, there was a piece by Louisiana legislative auditor highlighting $10 million in Medicaid payments that the state made on behalf of dead people between February 2019 and last March. Unsurprisingly, the most recent report shows that this kind of government waste and abuse, or depending upon your perspective, fraud by insurance companies who get payments for covering dead people, occurs with regularity. It happens constantly all the way across the nation. Hundreds of millions to cover dead people. Health Human Services Office, Inspector General, covered payments made to Medicare, managed care organizations from July 2021 through June 2022. Report came in most cases, but not all. State Medicaid agencies do not directly administer benefits for, pay doctors, hospitals who were the beneficiaries. They don't do that directly. Instead, they contract with managed care groups, organizations, pay insurers a capitated person per person account every month for that coverage. And that dynamic represents a very clear opportunity for all kinds of fraud. It not only presents an opportunity, but it happens all the time. During that 1 year, OIC found a total of nearly 410,000 capitation payments of $50 or more. Total $408 million worth, which was nothing but simply fraud, made on behalf of enrollees whose dates of death preceded service periods covered by the monthly payments. In other words, they were dead. Worth repeating that again. All but one of the payments to the insurers on behalf of dead people were improper or fraudulent. And yet the state Medicaid program had only recovered half, 50 out of 99 of those improper payments. Almost $500 million to dead people. Isn't that nice? Man. Blackout coffee, links in the show notes. What do you think about owning Greenland? You think it might be a good idea? Maybe our 51st state? Well, the people of Greenland are coming out in droves, and they are blasting Danish rule. Currently, the Danes control Greenland. For some time now, we've been watching this back and forth about Greenland. U.S., Denmark, nations of NATO have been at odds since President Trump took office about a year ago, and the U.S. has attempted to acquire Greenland on multiple occasions over the years, and good reason too. Greenland not only occupies a very strategic location in the North Atlantic, but it also has energy, rare earth minerals. The United States needs them. Denmark is adamant that Greenland will remain a Danish possession. Greenland's political leadership also insists that's not an issue. We will remain under Dane law. But the native population of Greenland, Greenlanders, they've got a bit of a different idea. Native Greenlander Amarok Peterson was 27 years old when she learned the gut-wrenching truth about why she couldn't have children, and that Denmark was to blame. Suffering from severe uterine problems, medical doctors discovered an IUD birth control device in her body. She didn't know it was there. Danish doctors had implanted it when she was 13 years old, part of a population control program. What? It was done to thousands of native Greenlanders, girls and women. Peterson said, "I will never have children." Tears of anger and sorrow wailing up in her eyes. That choice was taken from me. That is barbaric, folks. Amarok Peterson is not the only Greenlander to have a reason to be rather unhappy with Danish rule. Even in adulthood, medical decisions made without Peterson's consent, plagued with problems after the IUD, she'd repeated had surgeries for unexpected pain. It wasn't until years later that doctors informed her that her fallopian tubes had been removed in one of the operations in the early 2000s. All of this without her permission. Her family also suffered under Denmark's so-called Little Danes experiment. Oh, isn't that cute? Is Greenlandic children forcibly sent to Denmark for adoption or institutional care. One of the operations they carried out in the early 2000s. What the hell? Program ran from the 50s through the 70s, part of Denmark's broader effort to assimilate Greenlandic children, and very often it happened without parents' consent. Who the hell do these Danish people think they are? This is barbaric. Now, granted, the United States has not always had the best track record when it comes to dealing with native people, if you know what I mean. But that should not necessarily be taken as a sign that Greenland relatives are anxious to come over to the U.S. Denmark trying to make amends to the natives that they mistreated. Apparently there were thousands and thousands of them. About $40,000 each they're handing out in reparations. Please. I'm sorry, is it worth $40,000 for you not to be able to have children for the rest of your life? I don't think so. Unlike the calls for reparations in the U.S., payments are made to the living who suffered under an unjust policy. Many Greenland natives would rather the island be independent. They don't want anybody running their show. But not a tenable solution, especially in today's tense political atmosphere. The Arctic, increasingly vital strategic area with all the major nations, the U.S., Russia, China in particular, looking for that region's resources, especially those rare earth minerals. Greenland's got to be under someone's defensive envelope, even as the Danish procession, they fail under the protection of NATO. As a possession of the U.S., it would very much be protected. Denmark wants to retain the status quo, but a lot of natives are not happy with that. This island has one of the highest suicide rates in the world, according to research, with an estimated 81 out of 100,000 people annually ending their lives. They took our resources, they took our bodies, and they told us to thank them. She said of the Danes, how do you thank somebody who stole your future? Exactly. Maybe the native Greenlanders aren't happy under Denmark, aren't particularly interested in the United States either. But this is a constituency that the United States should at least be talking to. We've at least got to talk with these people. It's their future more than anybody else or anything else. Rare earth minerals and all that other crap, defensive positions. It is the future of the Greenlanders we need to be concerned about. Obviously, the Danish are not in any way, shape, or form. Unbelievable. What else we got going on? Blackout Coffee. Links in our show notes. Go pick yourself up a bag. It's the best stuff on the planet. Help support the show and help support Blackout Coffee, a company that cares about this country, our conservative values. Blackout Coffee, we are very proud to have them as a partner on this program. Check them out. The link's in our show notes. Use the code J20 for 20% off your first order at Blackout Coffee. When adults decide their noise and anger carry more weight than a referee's whistle, that ref loses his authority, or hers, but mostly his. The noise of squeaking shoes, rising voices, pride, it's always present. But one choice turned a Staten Island gym into something else entirely. The scene was a basketball game sponsored by the Catholic Youth Organization, which governs sports for the Catholic districts in that area. Kids stood nearby while parents rushed the court and began throwing punches. Video, which I'll play for you in a minute, shows adults brawling, shoving, and shouting as coaches and officials try to regain control back. The players, these young kids, pretty much just froze on the court. They didn't know whether to move, get out of the way, stay put. And basically, this kind of chaos completely ends the basketball game. Look at these idiots. What the hell? What a brilliant example to be setting for your kids on that basketball team, or the ones in the audience that you brought with you. Youth sports is supposed to be there to teach teamwork, okay? That's really what it's all about. A way to control your emotions. These adults, however, taught exactly the opposite to those kids. Watching grown-ups completely lose control of themselves. Channeling every school board decision, it's about the kids. Staten Island Borough President Vito Rosella talked about the brawl at the press conference and said the lines that every league claimed as its purpose. The mission was about the kids. Staten Island Borough President at a press conference. The mission was about teaching them responsibility. The mission was about them having a good time, the kids. The kids are the center of this universe here, and every once in a while, some spectators get out of control and ruin it for the kids, and then ruin it for everyone else. Hypocrisy flows out like coffee from a pot. Adults claiming to protect kids, becoming the source of fear and confusion. Oh, a very noble sounding phrase. It's for the kids. You ever been to a Catholic church bingo night? They get feisty at these things. Bingo cards slapped on tables, sharpened voices, somebody always insisting one number was skipped. Competitive instincts take over whenever people gather in large crowds. It's just the way we are, sadly. Now you add youth basketball to the mix, packed bleachers, a hot gym, parental pride, and all that raises tensions. And anybody who raises kids in competitive sports knows very well that feeling when a bad call, missed shot, stings, it hurts. Tempers begin to simmer. Overwhelming majority of parents, of course, manage to restrain themselves. They'll mutter and vent during the car ride home, but they don't throw punches out on the basketball court while the game is still in progress, surrounded by the very kids you are trying to set an example for. Youth leagues depend on adults to act maturely. It is the least we can expect. Coaches teach the fundamentals, they teach the plays. Parents are supposed to demonstrate character. That's how it works, folks. When parents fight, every word about sportsmanship, right out the window. You're done. But not that time. It just got worse. Ejected coach began strangling the tournament director. Other teams left the dugout, started jogging towards home plate. This is a baseball game where this happened. Unbelievable. Years later, kids are not going to remember the score of the game. They're going to remember the fear. They're going to remember the confusion, embarrassment. At a time when adults preached values and then showed they have none. We live in a screwed up world, my friends. Yes, indeed, we do. Here's an interesting one. Parents, we're going to stick with the kids for a while. Parents, you've got to actively opt out of turning your kids into digital-aged zombies, which they are very quickly becoming. The highest civic skill in the digital age is not coding or content creation, but the ability to look away. You remember when television was the technology that they warned us all about? Are you old enough to remember that? I am. Parents fretted over too many hours glued to the TV screen after school. Teachers rolled in a TV on a metal cart like contraband. Cultural critics cautioned the glowing box in our living room is going to rot our brains. Television, the villain of its age, time and time again, just like social media today, it existed as a passive, mind-numbing force that threatened attention spans and all of our civic life. Neil Postman took that fear very seriously, and in 1985, he declared that we Americans are amusing ourselves to death. What feels almost quaint now is not his alarm, but his target, television, merely the prototype for the power that cell phones and tablets have now over the populations. Danger was never the screen itself, but what happens when a society allows its dominant media to define how truth is presented, how politics is understood, how meaning is measured. Postman was not arguing against technology. He was warning us that every medium carries a philosophy, and some philosophies are completely incompatible with serious thought. Orwell feared that people would ban books. Huxley feared there'd be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wants to read one. Orwell, in 1984, imagined a tyrannical government suppressing the flow of truth and free speech through pain. Aldous Huxley wrote the book Brave New World, imagined tyranny through pleasure. Modern digital ecosystem reignited the debate as to whether U.S. will dissolve into a vision of Orwell or Huxley. We're not overly constrained by the heavy hand of federal overlords. Instead, atomized citizens have basically entertained themselves into complete irrelevance. And that's how we arrive at Postman's he calls it peekaboo news. Information without continuity and certainly with absolutely no consequence. Story surfaces briefly, it disappears, gets replaced. Before there's any action or reflection or anything can happen about it, it shows up, you gasp, you clutch your pearls, and then it's gone. Clicks equal revenue for advertisers. The big tech companies, in a sense, we are operating both under the imagined societies of Huxley and Orwell combined. Follow the money, public-private partnerships. You're going to find yourself entwined in a web of commercial interests that likely don't bend to your benefit. But that doesn't matter because you're more concerned with being a participant in the modern world than actually untangling something you don't understand. You can't be bothered. You don't have time. You're on to the next other big thing. And you forget about that one. This is the absolute but subtle genius of the whole digital ecosystem. Unlike Orwell's nightmare, nobody is forced to comply. We voluntarily give ourselves to it. Unlike Huxley's Soma, no chemical pacifier is required. We volunteer our attention. We outsource our thinking. And mistake constant simulation for participation. Just because you're stimulated by a post doesn't mean you're taking part. It's doing nothing for you. The algorithms flatter us by reflecting our beliefs right back at us. You think that's not planned? Of course it is. And why? For advertisers' benefit. Disagreement becomes hostility. Nuance becomes weakness. Silence interpreted as guilt. Consider that America's obsession with politics is a symptom of societal sickness. Healthy society does not experience politics as a 24-hour performance that throws itself in your face. Postman warned, when politics becomes entertainment, which it's fastly doing exactly that, it ceases to function as a serious mechanism for self-government. Average citizens do not deliberate. We root for our team instead of trying to persuade others to our perspective. Happens all the time, every day. That's got to stop, and we need to change. The only thing that can change is if we ourselves do that. That is the only way that's going to happen. All right. You see, that cold is still hanging on. Ah, man. I thought I was done with it. It snuck back on me, creeped up and junked myself right back in it. Ah, man. How about a $13 billion aircraft carrier and you can't flush the toilets? No, I'm not kidding. Now, we all live with things in our houses. I've got them myself, a squeaky hinge, a stubborn drawer, a cabinet drawer that doesn't close right, always sticking out a little bit. I'm that anal. I get really ticked off at things like that. But when a toilet decides to give out, makes for a long day usually. Everything stops. Every plan bends around the unavoidable destination. Well, multiply that by thousands of sailors out at sea. The ship's toilets. America's newest aircraft carrier projects absolute unmatched power. These things are amazing. But it also suffers from repeated failures. And apparently the ship's toilets are completely failing at doing their one job. The USS Gerald R. Ford is the most advanced aircraft carrier ever built. Electromagnetic catapults, advanced radar systems, next-generation defenses against the ship's missions. Crews, however, are forced to bring plungers to a potluck. When those systems go down, bathrooms stop working. Waste backs up, and repair crews are forced to scramble again and again and again. Daily routines become a form of damage control as sailors lose time and schedules slip. A ship is designed to protect and project strength. The inability to install this technology advanced by the Romans thousands of years ago is really probably not the best look for one of the most advanced warships on the seas. Emails in these documents that were leaked shows how the ship is working to address their toilet problem. Problems with the vacuum collection, holding, and transfer system increased in 2025. The vacuum system was adopted in part from the cruise ship industry. It uses less water, but the system used by the USS Ford is more complex. Breakdowns have been reported since this $13 billion carrier was first deployed in 2023. Every day the crew is presented on the ship, a troubled call is made for the ship's force personnel to repair or unclog a toilet. Since June of 2023, these risks had been flagged years and years ago. Way before deployment, oversight reviews, pipes were too narrow, pressure balances too sensitive, using complex components increased the risk of clogs, system failure, a design that favored sophistication over durability. Doesn't that sound familiar? Says we've investigated every class of ships the Navy recently built and found 150 examples of systematic maintenance problems. Sailors showed us things like failed engines, faulty electronics, and clogged toilets. These warnings reached senior levels in acquisition, programs, and engineering, who reviewed the findings and moved forward anyway. Now at sea, later becomes now, and fixes at sea are not so easy. Responsibility does not vanish into the sea air, folks. Navy Sea Systems Command oversees design standards. Hunting Ingalls Industries built the carrier. Programmed executives approved the system, and senior Navy leadership accepted the risk. Sailors didn't want complex, they inherited it. Every failure illustrates decisions from every decision maker. Theoretical performance outweighed by day-to-day reality. Our Navy, the United States Navy, remains the most capable maritime force ever assembled. But we can't flush the toilets. There you go. Oh, man. Why do we do it? Why do we do it? Absolutely insane. Where are we? Oh, yeah. A child's journey and the lost art of growing up. Back when I was a kid, a long time ago, basically we lived an adventure every single day. Even way back in the country, rural area that I grew up in, we roved around, we disappeared for hours. We were pirates, we were Indians and cowboys, and sometimes later on Jedi Knights, heroic warriors, damsels in distress. Cats became tigers. Creeks became raging rapids. The woods were vast and unknown, a scary place, and dark, dangerous. Cows became monsters, and deer became unicorns. And we explored. We rescued animals for real, usually from those same cats who were absolute demons when it came to chipmunks and baby rabbits. We created stories and games that stretched across days, sometimes weeks, evolving and changing as we did. It looked like play, it was play, but it was also something more. It was a preparation, a rehearsal for the adult world that we would eventually enter into. We learned courage by scraping our knees and getting back up again. We learned responsibility for tending injured animals, whether they survived or not. We buried and mourned those critters who died. We learned about fear and pain, limits and risk, about what happened when you pushed yourself too far, and what happened when you didn't push yourself enough. Nobody called it a hero's journey. Nobody needed to. We were living it. Today's kids, totally different. Not because they're weaker or they have less of an imagination, but because their childhood itself has been completely, radically transformed. At the core, the hero's journey is not complicated. Stripped down to the essentials, it's got basically three movements of descent, transformation, and return. Ask any good screenwriter, they'll tell you that. First, descent. Step away from safety and certainty. Child leaves a protected world, enters one where failure has consequences. Then, transformation. The stage that our culture now avoids at all costs, no matter what. This is the chrysalis moment. Chrysalis. Growth, invisible, uncomfortable, irreversible. Pressure reshapes the self. A child does not merely learn at this stage. A child becomes. And finally comes return. The world recognizes the change. Child is no longer treated as a child because the child is no longer one. In this individual version of the hero's journey, play is a rehearsal for this transformation from child to adult. The more often children practice descent and recovery and real unsupervised play is involved, the more natural the final change becomes. Historically, children didn't navigate this passage alone. Communities supported the journey, marked it clearly. Essential external changes, especially clothing, reflected your internal readiness. Children dressed as children, little boys wore gowns just like little girls, short pants, overalls. Little girls dressed in pinafores or mid-dresses or blue jeans. They did chores. As the responsibilities increased, so did the expectations. Roles within the family shifted. Older kids trusted with real work, meaningful responsibility. Even if it was just babysitting the younger kids. That was real responsibility they were entrusted with. Mistakes were expected, failure instructive. Adults supervised, but they didn't hover. And what mattered wasn't the specific tradition, but the structure behind it. A structure that seemed ancient and sacred to a child. Outer recognition of that change followed along with respect. Even as the rites of passage in the 20th century, the need for transportation or transformation did not. It expressed itself through youth culture, which became increasingly guided by the youths themselves, not the adults. The youths controlled that. Bobby Soxers in the 50s, hippies in the 60s, punk, metal, new wave in the 70s, 1980s. Now, these movements were very loud. They were oppositional. Sometimes they were pretty foolish and stupid. But they were understood as phases, things to go through and come out the other side. Everybody knew the difference between a bridge and a destination. When internal change is delayed or absent, the child still craves that internal marker that shows he is now an adult. In fact, the need to look different becomes extreme. Hair not just dyed like in the pastel 80s, but electric blue, neon green, rainbow striped, shaved heads, sculpted into shapes more radical than anything in the punk scene of the 80s and 90s. Clothing deliberately destabilized, rejecting any reasonable sign of maturity. Don't want that. Kids often adhere to fandoms like furry culture, adopting tails and fluffy ears. I'll never understand, but there you go. I'm too old for that crap. The escalation culminates in the most extreme claim of all, that altering your external sexual presentation means real transformation. It absolutely does not. Now, it's worth noting that gender dysphoria overwhelmingly coincides with the adolescence, and that's not incidental. Puberty, precisely the stage when transformation has always been most intense, the pressure becomes something more than a child, gains an acceleration. Clustering of dysphoria at this moment strongly suggests not an innate discovery that suddenly gets revealed, but a misdirected attempt at transformation. A surface level shortcut at the exact point when deep internal change should be taking place. But this is not a failure of the kids. This is not the children's fault. It is a failure of us, we adults. We replaced unstructured play with close, smothering supervision, risk with management, exploration by electronic screens, formation with affirmation, and in doing so, we completely dismantled the machinery of growing up. And then, insanely, we applauded kids for building substitutes. You know the expression, go out and touch the grass? There is complete validity in that. A real childhood is not holding a pen. It's a forge. It gives kids room to roam, to fail, to recover, to try again. And most importantly, it allows them to fail while the consequences are still very small, instructive, survivable, not life-changing, those consequences. Children need space to stretch before they're expected to fly. They need time to dry their wings, to test their strength, to misjudge a leap and learn from a scraped knee and a broken bone, perhaps. What we're doing now cripples them before they have even spread their wings for the first time, before they even get them out there to give them a test drive. We are doing everything we can to suppress that. And that is a big part of the problem. And that is the Jay Sheldon Show for Monday. Thanks for popping by. Please support the show. Go check out our sponsors and make a purchase over there. If you want to join our Patreon, we appreciate that very much. And we'll be back again tomorrow for the Tuesday edition. We'll see you then.